Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. I'm a 45-year-old man, and I've been divorced for 5 years now. My ex-wife, Serena, is 43. After the divorce was finalized, she was awarded primary custody of our 3 children. That outcome still gnaws at me, not because I don't love my kids or want what's best for them, but because I know, deep down, Serena didn't fight for custody out of maternal devotion. It was always about the money. Serena had been unfaithful to me during our marriage. She'd betrayed me with someone I once considered a brother, my former best friend, Darren. I had concrete proof of the affair. She was careless. The evidence I found on our shared laptop messages, photos, even hotel receipts left no room for denial. When I confronted her, she didn't even try to deny it. With that kind of documentation, alimony was off the table. She knew it. Her lawyer knew it. If she went after spousal support, I had enough to bury that claim. So instead, she turned her attention to the kids. Full custody meant child support. That was her angle, and she played it ruthlessly. What cut the deepest wasn't just Serena's strategy. It was how she pulled Oriana into it. Oriana was 15 at the time, old enough for the court to consider her voice in the custody decision. Serena didn't just poison the well, she filled my daughter's head with lies, twisted truths, and painted me out to be the villain. I'll never forget walking into court that day, thinking at least my oldest child would remember the years I tucked her in, coached her soccer team, sat up all night with her when she had the flu. But when she took the stand, she looked right through me like I was some stranger. He has anger issues, Oriana said calmly, looking toward the judge. He yells a lot. He scares me and my siblings. I don't think we're safe with him. The words hit me like a brick wall. I wanted to shout, to cry, to plead with her to stop. None of it was true. I'd never raised a hand to any of them. I raised my voice a few times, sure, but what parent hasn't? But the court believed her. Why wouldn't they? She wasn't some bitter ex. She was a teenage girl, well-spoken and scared. Or at least pretending to be. From there, it only got worse. The judge awarded Serena primary custody, and I was ordered to attend anger management counseling and begin with supervised visits. Supervised. Like I was a criminal. Sitting in a brightly lit room at the family center, I had to interact with my children under the watchful eye of a court-appointed monitor. Every word, every movement scrutinized. The humiliation was overwhelming. But I showed up every single time. Oriana never came. Not once. But Nolan and Emma did. Nolan was 8. Emma was just 6. They would run to me, their faces lighting up as if the rest of the world had fallen away. "Daddy!" Emma would shout, throwing her little arms around me. Nolan would follow right after. "Are we going to draw today? Can we play Uno again?" Those moments kept me going. Eventually, I completed my counseling, and the court lifted the supervision requirement. I could finally have unsupervised weekend visits. But Oriana still refused to see me. She wouldn't return my messages. Wouldn't even acknowledge my birthday texts. It was like she'd erased me from her life completely. Now, Nolan is 13 and Emma is 11. They still come for their weekends, and it's during those quiet moments when the games are done, and we're sitting around the dinner table or folding laundry together that they open up to me. A few weekends ago, Emma hesitated before taking a bite of her sandwich. She looked up at me and said softly, "Mom and Oriana fight a lot now." Nolan, who'd been scrolling through something on his phone, looked up and nodded. "Yeah, like a lot. Almost every day." I set down my coffee and looked between them. "About what?" They exchanged glances, unsure how much they should say. Nolan shrugged. "I dunno. Just a lot of stuff. It's been happening for a while." Emma added, "Sometimes Oriana slams her door so hard it shakes the wall." They didn't go into much more detail, but the message was clear. Serena and Oriana have been arguing frequently in recent months. According to Nolan and Emma, the arguments between Serena and Oriana have been escalating in intensity. Oriana's now 20, and whenever she comes home during college breaks, they say she seems unusually stressed. Apparently, after these fights, she'll storm off and lock herself in her room, sometimes crying, sometimes just going silent for hours. That surprised me. Oriana had always been Serena's favorite, the golden child. During the divorce, she stood firmly by her mother's side. After it was finalized, she stopped speaking to me altogether. Not a word. No texts. No calls. No explanations. Just complete radio silence. I never understood why she lied in court, why she claimed I was a threat, said those awful things about me that weren't remotely true. I always suspected Serena had manipulated her somehow, played on her emotions, twisted the story. But I never got to the bottom of it. Oriana never gave me that chance. Last weekend, something unexpected happened. I pulled into Serena and Darren's driveway, just like I always do for our usual weekend visitation. It's a routine I've stuck to for years. Stay in the car, let Nolan and Emma come out on their own. It's the only way I can avoid any unnecessary interaction with Serena or, God forbid, Darren. I can't stand the sight of either of them. But this time, as I was waiting, Oriana walked out with the kids. I couldn't believe it. She never came out when I was there. Usually, she made herself invisible, hid inside. Sometimes even locked herself in her room until I was gone. But here she was, walking right toward my car. Nolan and Emma climbed into the back seat like usual, but Oriana didn't stop at the porch. She came all the way to my window. Her expression was tense, nervous, like she was working up the courage to jump off a cliff. I cracked the window just slightly, unsure of what she was doing. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low, serious. "Please. It's important." I stared at her, gripping the steering wheel. My chest tightened. I could feel the years of bitterness pressing down on me like a weight. "I have nothing to say to you," I said coldly. "And I don't want to hear anything you have to say." Her eyes flickered, hurt. She stepped back a little, lips parting like she wanted to respond, but I didn't give her the chance. I pulled away from the curb, not even glancing in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to reopen wounds that had barely begun to scar. Not with her. Not after what she'd done to me in that courtroom. The memory of her voice accusing me of things I never did, it haunted me more than anything Serena ever said. That weekend, I focused on Nolan and Emma. We did our usual things: movies, pizza, a walk around the lake. I tried to forget about what happened in the driveway, tried to push Oriana out of my mind. But when I brought the kids back to Serena's on Sunday evening, Oriana was waiting outside again. She stepped forward as I stopped the car. "Dad, please," she said, voice shaking. "Just give me 5 minutes." I didn't even look at her. I kept my eyes on the steering wheel, then on the front door as Nolan and Emma got out. I waited for them to disappear inside. Then I pulled away without a word. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't trust what would come out of her mouth. I wasn't ready to sit across from the person who'd helped take my kids away. But after that, she started calling me. Once. Then again. Then again. Voicemails. Missed calls. Messages. It caught me off guard. Oriana had never done that, not once in all these years. In fact, I'd never changed my phone number. Not once. I kept the same number I had before the divorce, partly out of habit, partly out of some distant hope that one day, maybe, one of my kids might reach out. But Oriana never used it. Not once in 5 years. So when the first text came through, I nearly dropped my phone. "Dad, please. I need to talk to you. It's important." I didn't reply. I didn't even read it twice. I put the phone face down and tried to ignore it. But then another one came the next day. And then another. And another. She wasn't just sending one-word messages. These were long, pleading texts. The kind someone sends when they're desperate. Something had shifted. 2 days ago, I finally gave in. The frequency of her messages, the urgency in her words, it was too persistent to ignore. I don't even know what made me say yes. Maybe I was curious. Maybe a small part of me wanted answers after all these years. Whatever the reason, I told her she could come to my house. I didn't want to meet anywhere public. If this was going to be a serious conversation, I needed it to happen on my terms. She arrived that same afternoon. Exactly on time. Not a minute late. As soon as I opened the door, she stepped in and immediately started apologizing. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't even know where to start. I was wrong. I was so wrong." I stood there stunned. This wasn't the cold, distant Oriana I remembered from the courtroom. This was someone else, frantic, remorseful, on the verge of breaking down. "I made the worst mistake of my life," she continued, tears brimming in her eyes. "Testifying against you. I know now how much damage I caused. I misjudged everything. I believed things I shouldn't have. I didn't know what to say. My arms were crossed. I was still trying to protect myself from whatever this was, some trick, maybe. Some new drama unfolding on Serena's behalf. But something in Oriana's face told me this wasn't that. Finally, I asked, "Why, Oriana? Why did you say those things in court? Why did you turn your back on me like that?" She hesitated, looked down, and then she said, "Because Mom told me to." I just stared at her. "She said if I didn't help her get full custody," Oriana said, her voice quiet now, "we wouldn't have a place to live. That she wouldn't be able to afford anything. She said you were going to take everything from us. That you'd leave us with nothing. And she told me things about you. Things I thought were true. She made me believe you were dangerous. That you were furious all the time and unpredictable." My jaw tightened. I felt the familiar ache in my chest return, the old wound, split open again. "But why didn't you ever ask me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why didn't you talk to me before saying all that in court?" "I was scared," she said, her eyes full of shame. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting everyone. I see now that I was just being used." I stepped back and sank onto the couch. I didn't know what to do with all this. After 5 years of silence, this flood of confession was too much, too fast. You know, I try to keep the kids out of it, I said. I only wanted what was fair. The house, our savings, what we built together. I didn't try to take you away from your mother. I just didn't want to lose everything, especially not after what she did. Oriana nodded slowly. I know that now. I didn't then. I only found out about the affair years later. She never told me the truth. I thought you were the one who gave up, that you left her. I shook my head. No. She served me the papers and told me about the affair in the same breath. Like it was just some footnote. I was still reeling, trying to figure out how to save the marriage, how to hold the family together. But she was already done. She wanted Darren. That was all she cared about. Oriana sat down across from me, clasping her hands tightly. And when I realized that, I fought. I continued. I was angry, yeah? Humiliated. But I didn't want to drag the kids into the mud. I just wanted to protect what I had left. She looked up at me. But Mom, she didn't want that. No, I said flatly. Because she realized she'd be left with almost nothing. And Darren, he was in no position to help her. His business was a mess back then. He hadn't landed on his feet. He was between jobs. That's when the custody battle truly began, bloody and bitter, the kind you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. Serena knew exactly what she was doing. She recognized that child support was her one reliable way to secure money from me. The house, the savings, she stood to lose most of it. But the kids? The court would always prioritize the children's welfare. And with our younger ones being too little to have a real voice in court, she saw her opportunity in Oriana. She targeted her, manipulated her, twisted the truth until Oriana couldn't tell up from down. As Oriana sat across from me now, her eyes damp with shame, she finally began telling me what Serena had done. She told me you made her quit med school, Oriana said quietly. I blinked. What? She said, you didn't want her to be a doctor. That you pressured her to give up when she got pregnant with me. My laugh was bitter and short. That's a lie. She left on her own. She told me it was too much, the stress, the pressure of being pregnant, and trying to keep up with clinicals. I supported her either way. Hell, I even offered to pick up more shifts so she could finish. She said no. Oriana looked away. She also said you made her stay home. After I was born, I leaned forward, trying to keep my voice calm, but it was hard. No, that was our decision. We sat down and talked about it for weeks. You were a baby, we didn't want strangers raising you while we both worked 80 hours a week. We agreed she'd stay home. She said she wanted to. She said you treated her like all she was good for was having kids. I shook my head. Another lie. We both wanted a family. We both wanted kids. Every pregnancy was planned. Every single one. I never demanded anything from her. She said you kept pushing for a fourth. I let out a low breath. She mentioned it once. We talked about it. But it never went beyond that. I didn't push her. Not once. Oriana was silent, her hands clutched tightly in her lap. I could see it. She was replaying everything she'd been told, weighing it against what I was saying now. The scales were tipping. She said you only cared about her when she was pregnant. She whispered that when she wasn't carrying your children, you ignored her, that you didn't support her dreams. That Darren, that he listened to her, that he made her feel like a person. I swallowed. That one hurt. Because if she truly believed that, then Serena had done more than just lie. She had rewritten the entire history of our marriage. She said you were going to leave her with nothing, Oriana added, her voice cracking, that you were trying to cheat her out of what she deserved. That child support was the only way she'd get anything from you. That you'd leave us all with nothing, just to spite her. I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in years, I didn't see the cold witness who had testified against me in court. I saw a daughter who had been lied to, poisoned, used. She told you I was going to destroy her, I said quietly. Did she also tell you why we were getting divorced? Oriana didn't respond. She told you everything but the truth, didn't she? She nodded, barely. I believed her, she said. Everything she said. I trusted her. She's my mom. I couldn't argue with that. Of course she did. Of course she trusted her mother. And when you testified, I said slowly, you were just repeating what she told you. You thought it was the truth. She nodded again. I didn't know. I thought you were trying to hurt us. That you didn't care. And then, Darren and Mom convinced me to stop talking to Grandma and Grandpa. They said they were siding with you. That they didn't understand. But now I think it was because they didn't want me to find out what really happened. That they knew the truth. She paused, her voice trembling. They knew what had really happened. Oriana never questioned Serena and Darren. She accepted their version of events completely, no hesitation, no doubt. They were her family, after all. But things started to shift recently. Oriana reconnected with her maternal grandparents after her grandmother suffered a heart attack. That reconnection sent Serena and Darren into a visible panic. I could see it, even from a distance. They didn't want Oriana getting too close to my former in-laws. I later learned it was because her grandparents decided it was time Oriana heard some old truths things Serena and Darren had buried deep. They encouraged her to reach out to me, to speak with me directly, to find out the truth herself instead of blindly accepting the one-sided story she had been told for years. According to Oriana, that's been the cause of months of arguments between her and her mother. Serena was doing everything she could to keep Oriana from contacting me. But instead of feeling protected, Oriana's suspicions only grew. At 20, she's no longer the naive teenager she was at 15. Her mother's desperate attempts to keep her away started to seem less like care and more like control. She's been trying to shut me out, Oriana told me one night when we finally spoke. She's afraid I'll find out the truth. And maybe she's right. Oriana has become convinced that Serena used her as a pawn in our divorce. That all those lies, all that manipulation, it was just a tool to keep me out of our lives. She wanted to talk to me about the possibility of suing Serena, about holding her accountable for the damage she caused not just to me, but to my relationship with all the kids. The moment she mentioned it, I shut it down. Oriana, I've had enough, I told her firmly. I don't want to get tangled in any more legal battles. I've lived through all that drama once, and I'm not going back. I could hear her frustration over the phone. But Dad, she stole years of our relationship. She stole my chance to know you properly. Doesn't she deserve to face the consequences? Maybe she does. Maybe she's right. But for me, the thought of stepping back into a courtroom, facing lawyers and judges, reliving all that pain, it was overwhelming. I want no part of it. Now that Oriana knows the truth and I've moved on, built a new routine, found some stability, the only thing I'd consider is asking Serena to change the custody arrangement. Maybe let Nolan and Emma spend more time with me. Beyond that, no legal fights. It's not fear. It's practicality. It's about preserving whatever peace I've managed to find after years of chaos. But Oriana didn't back down. She kept insisting, becoming more passionate about the need for justice and accountability. Finally, after weeks of Oriana's persistence, I lost my patience. One evening, I told her straight up, Oriana, I get that you feel guilty about all this. But you need to understand you allowed yourself to be manipulated. Deep down, you always knew I wasn't the man your mother made me out to be. She was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the tension in her breathing over the phone. I spent 15 years with you before the divorce, she said softly. I thought I knew who you were. Exactly, I replied. You saw me for who I am. Back then, you wanted to be your mother's hero. Now it seems you want to be mine. But you have to stop meddling in things that aren't your concern anymore. You're 20 years old now. There's no custody agreement stopping you from seeing me or trying to fix what's broken. Her voice cracked a little. But what about Nolan and Emma? I'll handle that, I said firmly. Through the proper channels, not because you pressure me. I'm not interested in dragging any more people through legal battles just because you feel guilty for your role years ago. There was silence on the other end. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, almost hesitant. I just thought. I know what you thought, I interrupted. But sometimes, stepping back is the best thing you can do. She seemed taken aback by how harsh and abrupt I'd been. That was the last I heard from her. She left the conversation without much else and hasn't contacted me since. Now, I wonder, was I too harsh? Did my resentment make me reject a genuine attempt at reconciliation? Was I being a jerk telling my daughter to stop trying to be the hero in every situation? After some time, I realized something important. I hadn't had proper contact with my former in-laws for years. So, I had no idea they were still encouraging Oriana to reach out to me. I recently reached out to them, asking exactly what they had told Oriana. They confirmed they had encouraged her to contact me, but they hadn't told me earlier. They said they didn't want to give me false hope if Oriana decided not to follow through. They knew how painful the custody process was for me. I told them, and they didn't want to make things worse if it didn't work out. They expressed their gratitude that I was finally open to talking with Oriana. They had also testified in my favor during the custody hearing along with my parents, which had made things awkward between us all. But somehow, despite everything, we maintained some contact over the years. Lately, though, with my heavy workload, I hadn't spoken to them in months. We had drifted apart a little, not because of any conflict, but just the natural distance that happens when people aren't actively in each other's lives. I'm grateful that my former in-laws thought to intervene the way they did because, thanks to them, Oriana finally discovered the truth about her mother. That means I can now pursue joint custody of Nolan and Emma, a significant development, and I'm extremely thankful for the role they played in making this possible. Before I go any further, I want to clarify something important about my previous attempts to gain custody. I did try twice, actually, to get joint custody of my younger children in the years following the divorce. But Serena fought back fiercely against any changes. She knew those younger kids were her only reliable source of child support payments from me, since Oriana was already legally an adult by then. I hate to admit it, But Serena and her lawyer were pretty effective at painting me in a bad light to the court. They leaned heavily on Oriana's past testimony and suggested that nothing had changed, that I still had a volatile temper. Even my own lawyer advised me to hold off, to wait and build a stronger case before pushing again. So for the past 3 years, I chose to wait. I didn't want to waste my time, energy, or money on what felt like a losing battle, especially with the precedent already set. It's a complicated situation, way deeper than I can fully explain here, but I want to assure you that I did everything I could within the limits I faced. I finally decided to talk to Oriana and work through our issues because, after reflecting for several days, I realized the universe was giving me a second chance to reconnect with the daughter I'd lost to Serena. I couldn't deny it. After Oriana was born, my demanding career left me with little time for her. It was mostly Serena who spent the long days and nights caring for her. I wasn't completely absent from Oriana's life, but naturally, by spending more time with her mother, Oriana developed a closer bond with Serena. Like I said in my original post, Oriana was Serena's favorite child. They shared a special connection that sometimes made me feel like an outsider in their relationship. I tried to put myself in Oriana's shoes. I understood how hard it must have been for her to doubt her own mother, especially given how close they were. She made a mistake at 15, a big one, with consequences that lasted for years. She kept believing her mother's version of events until recently. That's something she'll have to live with for the rest of her life. She chose to lie about me and let that lie damage my relationship with her siblings for years. Those aren't small transgressions, nothing that can be easily forgotten or just brushed aside. But the fact that she's now acknowledged her mistake and reached out to make amends means something. It means a lot. After thinking it through and wrestling with it inside, I decided I owed it to both of us to at least talk. Not to shut her out immediately or reject her apology outright. So earlier today, I called her. I told her I was willing to talk again if she genuinely wanted to work things out and start rebuilding what we lost. I suggested she come over to my house that very evening so we could have a proper face-to-face conversation. Unfortunately, she'd already gone back to college in another state. But we agreed to do a video call to at least start hashing things out until she could visit in person. That evening, we connected over video. After some awkward greetings, we finally got down to business. Neither of us really knew how to act after all these years apart, but we both agreed we had to face the issues head on. I said to her, "Oriana, I've been deeply disappointed for years. For 5 whole years, you never questioned the stories your mother told you. You never tried to check with me or other family members who knew the truth." She nodded, looking down for a moment. I continued, "Considering how I treated you with love, affection, respect ever since you were a little girl, it feels absurd that you'd choose to lie on your mother's behalf without giving me a chance to defend myself." I paused, letting it sink in. "I want you to know, I'll try to move past this. But forgetting? That's impossible. Pretending everything's fine is something I just can't do. If we're going to move forward, that's something you have to accept." She looked back at me, her voice quiet but steady. "I know, Dad. I understand. There's nothing I can do to change the past or undo the damage I've caused. She made numerous mistakes. For years, she never once questioned herself or her mother's narrative because she was convinced her mother would never lie to her about something so important. Oriana truly believed I was some kind of monster hiding my true nature from everyone except her mother, who supposedly knew the real me. Now that she finally saw how badly she had misread everything, she was desperate to make amends in any way possible. Even though I wasn't eager to pursue legal action against Serena, Oriana hoped I would at least give her a second chance to prove she could be a better daughter than before. She accepted that some of her actions would haunt her for the rest of her life. She knew she couldn't reasonably expect me to forget the trauma and pain she'd caused. But she was asking for a chance to repair some of the damage and gradually rebuild our relationship on whatever terms I deemed appropriate. After we talked for what felt like hours, I told her I still needed time. This all came on so suddenly and unexpectedly. I needed space to process everything. She agreed right away, without hesitation. "Take all the time you need, Dad," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry for what I did, for the pain I caused." Despite trying to keep composed, I could see the tears welling in her eyes. Eventually, she broke down crying. And I won't lie, I did too. The emotional weight of everything we had lost was overwhelming for both of us. Looking back, I'm glad we had that conversation. It allowed us to address a lot of issues openly and honestly. That's the only way to move forward after the mess Serena created. To be honest, I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive her or put all this behind me. But I do know it's worth trying for both our sakes. It's been a few days since I last updated, and after talking with Oriana, I decided it was time to talk to Serena about modifying our custody agreement. Nolan and Emma needed to spend more time with me. I had already planned to address this issue this year. But now, regardless of Oriana's return into my life, a perfect opportunity had presented itself. I had more leverage. I contacted Serena and told her we needed to have a serious discussion about the custody agreement. As I expected, she immediately tried to dodge the conversation. "Colton, I'm really swamped these next few weeks with work and other things," she said, her voice dripping with that familiar evasiveness. I knew she was just stalling, hoping I'd drop the matter like in previous years. But this time, I wasn't going to back down. I leveled with her. "Serena, Oriana has already spoken with me extensively. If you don't want this to end up in court, if you don't want me suing you for everything you've done and all the manipulation, you need to sit down with me and legally modify the custody agreement." There was a pause on the other end, but I pressed on. "Also, I want you to stop receiving child support payments from me. I know you and Darren have started that business together. You're not struggling financially like you claimed for years." I could hear her shifting uncomfortably. "And I want you to return the money you took from me under false pretenses," I added firmly. "You need to get your financial house in order, or I will take you to court, and this time, I have Oriana's support." I didn't sugarcoat it. Oriana is willing to testify in my favor and reveal the truth about everything. This is your choice, Serena. Cooperate and avoid legal consequences, which is what I want for all of us, or force me down a much harder path through the courts. The decision is yours. There was a long silence. Then she finally spoke, but the tone was different, less confident, less defiant. "I need some time to think about this, Colton. I'll have to talk it over with Darren." That shift in her voice was exactly what I wanted to hear after all these years. I gave her a deadline. "You have until the end of the week to decide. If I don't hear from you, I'll contact my lawyer immediately. And Serena, trust me, you could lose even more if this goes to court, especially with Oriana's testimony bolstering my case." She got upset when I laid everything out and accused me of blackmail. Her voice was sharp, almost defensive. "Colton, this is blackmail. You're threatening me." I didn't flinch. "Call it whatever you want," I said firmly. "At this point, I don't care what you call it. I've spent years trying to stay out of this mess, trying to preserve peace and stability for the sake of the kids. But now, I'm done playing that role." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm determined to reclaim what's rightfully mine, my money, my life, and most importantly, my place in Nolan and Emma's lives. No matter what it takes. Whether that means pressuring you or taking this to court. She was quiet for a moment. I knew my words hit hard. Until recently, I had felt differently about all this, hesitated to take a confrontational approach. That hesitation came from a bad experience in court before, the fear of losing again. But with Oriana now supporting me, willing to testify about all the manipulation that went on, I wasn't worried anymore. I finally felt confident that after all these years, justice would be served. The end of the week came quickly, and yesterday, I sat down with Oriana to talk about my conversation with her mother. I wanted to make sure she fully understood what might be required if this ended up in court. "Oriana," I said, "if this goes legal, you'd have to testify again, this time contradicting your earlier testimony. I know you were just 15 then and legally a minor, but this could cause complications for you both legally and emotionally." I looked her in the eye, needing her to really get what she was stepping into. "Are you sure you're willing to do that? Even knowing it might be difficult?" She nodded with complete conviction. "Dad, yes. I want to do what's right, even if it means personal consequences for me." What Serena did was inexcusable. There's no way to justify it. She paused for a moment, then added honestly, "I also have to admit, my own actions were wrong from the start. I knew I was lying when I testified. I did it because Mom asked me to, and she convinced me it was necessary to get what she wanted in the divorce." Her voice softened. "It wasn't easy. I'm not naturally dishonest or manipulative, but I went along because she told me to. Even though I hadn't seen any of those things in real life, I was willing to do whatever it takes to make it right now." She looked down, and then back up, steady and sure, "Even if it means risking my relationship with Mom." I was deeply moved when Oriana said all that. It confirmed, without a doubt, that she was serious about making amends. She wasn't just saying those things to ease her conscience or placate me, she truly meant it, and she was prepared to back it up with actions. That gave me a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could start to change. Still, I held on to the hope that Serena would agree to my requests without much resistance. Legal battles were messy, draining, and something I wanted to avoid if at all possible. If she thought rationally about her own best interests, she would want to avoid going to trial too, especially with everything that might come to light once the courts got involved. Earlier today, I finally called her to get her answer. I hoped she had come to a reasonable decision by now. She didn't answer my first few calls, so I sent a text telling her plainly that ignoring the problem wouldn't make it go away, something she should have learned by now. Eventually, she called me back. For the first few minutes, she was evasive, stalling with small talk and vague statements, exactly the same tactics she had used for years. I didn't have the patience anymore. So, Serena, I said directly, cutting through the fog, do you have an answer for me? Or should I just contact my lawyer right away? Because I'm tired of going in circles here. She hesitated, dodging the question again for a few more minutes, and trying to steer the conversation toward other topics. But I kept at it, firm and unwavering. Finally, she gave in. All right, Colton, I agree to your terms, she said, almost reluctantly. But I want us to keep lawyers out of this whole thing. I nodded, or at least I imagined I did. Fine, I'll agree to that, but I want the first payment made within the next month. I'm not going to wait indefinitely for you to start making things right. She tried to push back. Colton, Darren, and I just launched our business. We need time for it to become profitable before we can start paying you. I cut her off. I'm not interested in your excuses or your financial situation. You've had plenty of time over the years to do the right thing. You never admitted any wrongdoing or made any effort to fix this. So at this point, you owe me nothing more than what's fair. I wasn't trying to be harsh, just honest. I'm a person of integrity. I only wanted what was rightfully mine. No more, no less. I'd meticulously reviewed the child support payments from the past few years, and I strongly suspected she had appropriated those funds for her personal use, rather than spending them on the children as intended. Even if Serena hadn't technically misused those funds, legally or morally, it didn't matter to me anymore. She was never entitled to that money in the first place. She'd obtained it through deceit and manipulation. I was pretty certain that was the money she'd used to initially fund their business venture, though I couldn't definitively prove it. My accountant had carefully calculated the total amount owed, factoring in every payment she'd received over the years. She would have to return the full sum. I wasn't planning to keep a penny of it for myself. I intended to allocate that money strictly for the children's future educational expenses and other essential needs. Although, I didn't feel the need to inform her of that detail. I was being fair and only demanding what was rightfully mine, which was a stark contrast to her behavior throughout our divorce and custody proceedings. I made it clear to her that this should be considered my last act of goodwill. She should be grateful that I was choosing not to pursue legal action that could have resulted in far worse consequences for her. But as usual, she kept trying to negotiate for more favorable terms. That's when I abruptly ended the call. Right after, I sent her a text message, blunt and to the point. I don't want to discuss this further. It's a waste of my valuable time. I just want the payments to arrive promptly as per the agreement we reached. If there are any delays or issues, be absolutely certain I will take this to court without hesitation. Privately, I consulted with my lawyer. While I wanted to avoid litigation for everyone's sake, I also thought it was important to have a formal contract documenting our new agreement. I informed Serena I'd be sending over the contract the following week for her signature. These were my terms, and I believe they were entirely fair given everything. Whether anyone approved of my approach or attitude didn't matter to me. The time for consideration and leniency was long past. I refused to tolerate any further mistreatment or manipulation from Serena or anyone associated with her, including Darren. It's been several months since my last update, and Oriana and I have been actively working on improving our relationship. It hasn't been easy, far from it. Sometimes, out of nowhere, memories of everything that happened come flooding back, and moving forward feels like an uphill battle. In those moments, I tend to become distant, withdrawn into myself. But Oriana is wise enough to recognize when I need space, and she doesn't take it personally. She knows better than to push me when I'm struggling. After those moments pass, we pick up where we left off, resuming our conversations and working through our issues with as much maturity as we can muster. It's a slow process, but we're making progress, and I'm confident we'll keep improving our situation over time. Serena has been consistently meeting her obligations, and I'm keeping my promise not to take her to court as long as she continues to honor our agreement. She even signed a contract I mentioned in my previous update, so now we have something formal that she can't just walk away from without consequences. It feels good to have that in place. Little by little, I'm recovering what I lost financially. But more importantly, I'm regaining time with my children, including Oriana, and that makes me incredibly happy and grateful. I know plenty of people disagreed with my decision to forgive Oriana. Some suggested she might betray me again if circumstances changed. But as a father who loves his daughter despite everything, I highly doubt that will happen. We've been rebuilding our bond carefully and consciously. Everyone makes mistakes, especially during their formative years when judgment and critical thinking are still developing. I mean, I'd be in a tough spot if people judged me forever for mistakes I made when I was 15. So, I'm willing to give our relationship another chance. I truly believe everything will work out in the end, even though the path to get there isn't always easy or straightforward. Nolan and Emma have also benefited from the new arrangement. They're spending much more time with me now, and our relationship has strengthened considerably. They seem happier and more balanced, no longer caught in the middle of adult conflicts they don't understand. I've been very careful not to speak negatively about their mother in front of them despite everything, because I believe that would only cause them harm in the long run. That's all I have to share for now. I'm happy and generally doing well, despite the occasional difficulties that still arise. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.